here's Purple right now queuing up the Zoo list, immediately trying to get that matchup, and he gets it. Death Rattle Hunter versus the Zoo. Devilsaur Egg and Play Dead in the opening hand. About as good of an opening hand for Monsanto as you can ask for, but is it going to be enough, or is Zoo going to overrun him?
Yeah, I think with Candle Shot and the Egg and Play Dead, that's exactly the recipe for success. As, apologies, I was just sending out the tweet to let people know. Make sure to tell your friends to tune in. I mean, this is one of the most stacked top 16s that you'll see, but this has been fairly consistent to, I think, the second half of the Hearthstone Championship Tour season in 2018. Largely because I think most of the players who are still attending these events are the ones still chasing the points or the playoffs consistently. So you do tend to see a large representation of the strongest players in the regions. And, I mean, I don't even know who's going to win. I could see half this field easily taking it, and then the other half, I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the finals.
I can tell you this, a Canadian's going to win this one.
Okay. Oh, you mean this series?
This series,
okay,
yeah.
I thought you meant this tour stop.
Well, I mean, statistically, that's not a bad idea either, just because I believe we have 4 Canadians in the top 16. So statistically, not too uncommon.
Yeah, great. This Devilsaur Egg, very scary. I mean, Purple doesn't have an early start whatsoever, and his game will begin with a double amp, but Monsanto has bigger plans. First, going to tracking, maybe picks up another Play Dead. 2 5/5s would just be the nuts this early on.
Oh, yeah. 2 5/5s definitely going to take control of the board very early on, which is what the Hunter wants to do, because as soon as he falls behind on board, that's when the deck has historically struggled immensely. But if he doesn't pick up another Play Dead or a Death Rattle activator, he's going to run out of gas fairly soon. Just MC Tech in the hand. Another tracking. Could try to look for the Play Dead once more.
Well, if he has tracking number 2, he doesn't have enough mana to play a second Play Dead this turn. But it would allow him to potentially fit an awkward turn 4, turn 5. That being said, Witcher Grizzly, not unreasonable pick against Zoo, but towards the later stages of the game, early on, especially when Purple passed on turn 1 and life tapped on 2, Witcher Grizzly's a lot weaker.
Against Zoo, sometimes you can get it down as just a 5-mana 3/8, which is just completely fine.
Ooh.
But this is an interesting decision, and he's not going to take any time at all. He's going for the Death Rattle activator. Ziliax, get him out of here.
I think the Terrascale Stalker is kind of what we're talking about, that turn 4 play that was somewhat lacking. I mean, his best option was to hope that his opponent developed into Mind Control Tech. But, you know, Purple obviously going to avoid that. Ends up pitching Fungal Enchanter, which is one of the weaker cards in his hand right now, unless he had Happy Ghoul. So this is a really good setup. And more than likely, Purple should be able to land a very clean Fungal Mancer. But the second Devilsaur is going to be pretty painful given the way the stats line up right now.
Yeah, stat for stat, the boards are actually going to be pretty comparable with the Fungal Mancer coming down next turn, like you said. And Purple also has been on stream a couple times this weekend, and he has very consistently been trading his board just to play around the MC Tech, because that is a tech card that has been pretty across the board, just kind of been a one-of in basically every archetype.
Love this attack. This is a nod to Fungal Mancer. Attacking minions in the middle makes their positioning a little bit more awkward for how the Fungal Mancer buff lands.
Not going to be able to trade into that 3/3 now, at least with the middle one.
Right, and then because he preemptively attacks, also sets up an opportunity to pick whatever he wants to eliminate. If the 2/1 does not get buffed because there is no Fungal Mancer, he can just swing at it anyways next turn.
This part where Zoo really needs to try to run away with the board, because the longer this game goes on, the more it's probably going to favor the Hunter, just because I see Katharina in hand, Mind Control Tech. He's got to apply a lot of pressure really quickly, and he has all the 5-drops that he could possibly want. But is it going to be enough? I'm not sure.
I mean, does he want to pick up the trade? The value trade over the 3/3 is kind of hard to pass up. Mind Control Tech here is... Oh, or Carnivorous Cube can make a case for both of these. Mind Control Tech is somewhat comparable in stats in the sense that you steal your opponent's minion, so you eliminate power on the board and you increase your own. But if you steal a 2/2, it's significantly weaker than a cube and a 5/5. And the damage for the hero power doesn't matter nearly as much. So stealing a 4-attack minion is really important, and he lands the best one.
That is so good. He had a 50-50 shot of getting just a 2/2, which would have been all right because you're denying your opponent another body, but the 4/3 is just so good. Now he just has board control. He can set up the Carnivorous Cube next turn, He has the Mossy Horror if your opponent goes wide, and the Kathrina over the top is... Monsanto looks like he's running away with it.
Yeah, and that was also really big, too, because had he stolen, say, like the 4-1, then Dreadlord would have been a lot better in that specific scenario. And now Purple's forced to play Dreadlord and play from behind, because right now Monsanto gets to take huge initiative and a Q play dead opportunity available to Monsanto. Although, actually, it's not nearly as insane as it would be because there's no existing 5/5s, and the doubling imp is only going to come out as a 2/2.
At the same time, Carnivorous Cube you can kind of treat as a Death Rattle activator. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he played dead the egg, make a 5/5, cube the egg to make another 5/5. And then, so you don't really care necessarily what's inside the cube at this point because you just want the stats on board.
Agreed.
And so creating 2 5/5s and developing a cube seems like just an absolute great play to me. Monsanto agrees.
Yeah, and I think this is probably going to be lights out for Purple unless he has a dramatic swing on the board with Soul Fires, maybe even a Doom Guard. But right now it's looking dicey. Purple concedes, and that is going to be game 1 to Monsanto. Death Rattle Hunter putting the rest of the Hearthstone
had downwards of 30% win rates on ladder, and they've been considered tier 4. Patron Warrior is an example. Only the best people could pilot that deck, and when you played it on ladder, you're like, you were playing it very suboptimally compared to what the best players were doing, and it would lower the win rate overall. And so when you look at Patron Warrior, you're like, has a 30% win rate. Clearly, it's a bad deck. That is not the case at all.
Yeah, I mean, we had our periods where like the best ladder deck was very clearly the #1 deck in the game, like Jade Druid about last summer, so about 15, 16 months ago. That was just, horrendously obnoxious with how strong Jade Druid was both in tournaments. It was like 100% representation in tournaments. And it was also just like 55% against the entire field. It was so sick. We also had like Aggro Shaman, the year before, and Mid-Range Shaman right before that too. And that was, quite appropriately coined the Year of the Shaman. So, we've had some metas where we've had really dominant decks. We've had some metas where it's really widespread, like the Witchwind meta. And then we have Boomsday, which is kind of like a polarized meta to a lot of people. And I think what ends up being the case right now is that Death Rattle Hunter, once again, is one of those decks that is preying on it. But I anticipate if Death Rattle Hunter gets too popular, then aggro decks will come out in vogue. And you're starting to see that with Murloc Mage. I mean, heck, I saw Zalay tweet a Murloc Warrior. That is the class I least expected to be playing Murlocs, given that its hero power inherently does not let you be aggressive.
Yeah, I think when Zalay posted that Murloc Warrior list, a red light went off at Blizzard like, what's going on? This wasn't supposed to happen. And go back to what you're saying about polarizing matchups. Purple got the matchup he was looking for in this series. He got the Zoo into the Death Rattle Hunter. He wanted to apply as much pressure as possible, and he just didn't get there. So even sometimes when you get the favorable, Death Rattle Hunter can still just get there.
Yeah, and now that Zoo has to go up against Druid and Rogue, those are two classes that it performs much worse against. Ooh, Purple picks up another Wild Growth, but here's the problem. Purple needs actual substance to play. He needs to hit Nourish, Branching Paths. I mean, even Ultimate Infestations that he has something to look forward to would be great. But this is something that we haven't seen in quite some time on stream, which is two players both having the Twig simultaneously. I haven't seen this in a couple of events by now. And it is always quite the explosive matchup. Normally, some of these Druid games can go on for a long time. I like this play by Purple, playing a tempo Arcane Tyrant to try and put a little bit of pressure. The early life gain lead can be pretty significant in this matchup if you're able to get your opponent low enough for, just a simple Malygos combo as opposed to this elaborate Twig shenanigans.
Yeah, the Twig has been really interesting this weekend because sometimes it just never got played or it's just been stuck in the hand because they've been just struggling to survive. But I think we were actually casting Purple earlier this weekend, and I think he cracked the Twig on like turn 8 and just killed his opponent with a huge Malygos turn. And so sometimes it just gets games over real quick, and then sometimes it's just going to sit there for a while. But both players drew all their removal. That's the UI. Just one turn shy with the coin.
Yeah. And that might make Purple use his removal a little bit more aggressively. Like, let's say he uses Spellstones next turn. He's been hero powering twice already, so it should be upgraded to a 4 damage removal spell. And then Monsanto this turn has two options of either using his Death Knight with Malfurion the Pestilent, Or perhaps instead he wants to utilize his Nourish to improve his hand versatility, and then he can simply remove the 4/4 and stop taking damage. Because I think, Purple playing the Tyrant very aggressively on 5 kind of sends a message to Monsanto that he wants to take as much life as he can. And Monsanto also knows that Purple will be first to snap the Twig, which means that he is naturally on the defensive, even though he has the resource advantage right now.
On the other hand, Monsanto might be getting the signal that Purple's hand is just kind of clunky. It might just have a bunch of removal like he does currently, because if that's what you're playing Arcane Tyrant on turn 5, it's usually coupled with a Nourish. And if there's no Nourish, that means your hand's probably a little clunky.
Yeah, I think Fury of the Pestilence is so good in this specific matchup because the ability to gain 3 armor and put yourself out of range, or more importantly, like utilize the 3 attack for pressure in certain scenarios is really powerful. Ooh. Spiders. I like it. I mean, the thing is, you also know Purple can't Ultimate Infestation, so most likely he's just going to Hero Power this down. But here's another question, too. Does Purple dump it for space? And that's kind of what I was thinking right here.
And you also got to think, like, what else in this matchup are you even using a Spellstone on? And I think the only answer really is the Arcane Tyrant, and your opponent hasn't played him yet, and it's going into turn 8, so you might as well just use it on the Poison Spiders. Because like you said, it also doubles as emptying out your hand, so we can coin out this Ultimate Infestation without having to worry about milling any important cards.
Right, he's played 1 Arcane Tyrant already, so it's unlikely that he'll draw another one, even though he draws 5 cards. Or rather, it's less likely.
Yeah.
But here's another thing, too, is that, what does Monsanto do right here? He actually has kind of a stalled turn. And he, once again, does not want to take too much damage from this Arcane Tyrant, so he was thinking about dumping his hand, playing Spreading Plague and Arcane Tyrant, and somewhat making Purple a little uncomfortable with the idea of maybe Innervate into Ultimate Infestation.
We have the Nourish in hand as well, and it's just a little awkward at this point in the game because you're close to 10 mana, so you obviously don't want to ramp, but if you draw, then your hand's a lot more full, and then you might draw UI, and then you can never play it. Then you just have dead cards in your hand.
Yeah.
It just becomes awkward.
Yeah. And this is potential big turn for Purple. He has the opportunity to break the Twig, gain 10 mana crystals twice over. So let's see what Ultimate Infestation draws. Target the 5. Yeah, the 4/5 or 4/4, excuse me.
Yep. And the Arcane Tyrant's going to go into the Beetle with the Twig as well.
Yeah.
I think he might not break it this turn, obviously, just because it depends on what he draws. If there's the Forbiddeness Flute, there's a Mind Control Tech, and the Lich King.
So what this allows him to do next turn, I mean, he can snap and play the Lich King right now for maximum tempo, but his opponent still can somewhat reasonably answer the board if he has, Naturalized and Spellstone. That kind of crumbles his entire pressure. So what he can do the following turn is play Lich King, Forbiddeness Flute, and other stuff. And look at this. Purple dumping his hand just a little bit, and I think this is I mean, he has 8 cards right now.
Yep.
So he's not going to mill a card. This wasn't necessary. But by doing this, he removes Monsanto's ability to be defensive. And more importantly, if he's going for a double Lich King card, he needs to free up his hand space a little bit.
I also think this is a little bit of a nod to the fact that Monsanto played Malfurion the Pestilence so early in the game, and Purple still does not have access to it. So I think he's thinking he's probably going to gain so much armor by the time I'm getting my Malagos combo off that this Moonfire is kind of irrelevant. So I'd rather keep as much value as possible through the Lich King, which is what you were talking about.
And think about it, too. 1 Spreading Plague's been used, so it's not like Monsanto can set up a couple of giant waves of walls to weaken his opponent's board. So if he just goes for the classic way to kill Druid, which is tall and wide, 2 Lich Kings, big cards, big damage, Anti-Magic Shell might be coming to his hand, Monsanto won't win, and he doesn't need Malagos and Moonfire.
Also got to be careful with getting too big of a Lich King with stuff like the Anti-Magic Shell, because you know your opponent has the Faceless Manipulator. You don't necessarily want to give him one as well, but at the same time, Anti-Magic Shell is just so good against Druid, because all their removal is targeted. But on the other side, just as likely that you get Army of the Dead, which is what we saw with Monsanto the other day. He just got 3 Army of the Dead with the Malagos Druid, and they were just sitting in the hand. He even milled 5 cards.
Purple going with more removal, very slowly dumping his hand and also armoring up because he knows Monsanto has the possibility of doing some big damage. This deck runs Faceless Manipulator, so in the event that Monsanto ends up drawing the absolute nuts, which is Malygos, Fablindus Floop, Faceless Manipulator, Swipe, Moonfire, Moonfire. Actually, that would be impossible because Monsanto only has 5 cards.
He has Innervate. He doesn't have that many Innervates.
Right. Well, I mean, the idea is that if he had that burst, he just wants to stay alive, and then if he can clear that wall, then he can go for his big own swing turn as well.
Wonder if Monsanto's hesitant to even draw with the Nourish here, just because I wonder if he's thinking about fatigue at all. Your opponent just UI'd. He hasn't really done a whole lot with it. Maybe he's thinking that far ahead, or maybe he's thinking I just got to get to this combo as quickly as possible, but he doesn't go for the Nourish.
Yeah. And a swipe being used.
That's one less swipe for the Malygos.
Yeah, and now Purple saw swipe being used, knows that Monsanto doesn't have a very good hand, can still put on slight pressure, still being very cautious. I mean, one of the things to worry about, I was looking at the Lich King and the Fablindus Floop, but, when your opponent's still holding 1 mana Twig, that doesn't mean that you can hold on to your board. He still can just clear everything with that extra 10 mana crystal. So both players being very cautious not to overextend right now. Kind of hard not to do this, though, to not play Lich King. And looks like he's not planning to attack.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to either. And Lich King's just one of those cards where you just got to get it down, and it's very hard to find a situation where your opponent has used both naturalizes already, just because what would they have used the naturalizes on? It's basically for the Lich King and the Malygos. So you just kind of hope for the best, hope they don't have it, and hope you get a good card out of it in the event that you only do get that one card out of it. Death Coil, not bad.
Yeah, it's actually a fantastic backup option for Purple because Swipe can be used defensively if it needs to, and then Death Coil adds more burst for cheaper mana. Monsanto has the ability to face this to the Lich King, kind of what you were talking about before, but by using Naturalize on the Lich King, he also acknowledges that he gives his opponent the ability to remove his Lich King, and I don't think one single Death Knight card is going to change this game, unless it's Anti-Magic Shell. And even then, it's manageable because you can still Malygos swipe.
It's really hard to develop like a huge board of beetles because the fact that Monsanto even got 2 beetles off the Spreading Plague is actually kind of like a small miracle. You very rarely see it.
Yeah, it looks like Monsanto is getting very far behind because the longer he waits, the more chances Purple has to build his armor, and it feels somewhat all in on this this Twig plan. And Purple is just going to use his Fablindus Floop to get another Lich King card.
Wow.
And just put more pressure, saying, okay, now you have to remove this.
It's really interesting. Oh, Death Grip.
Oh. But, I mean, he can actually still take a pretty important card in the Fablindus Floop, too.
Yeah, there's still the Florist as well, and I believe that's really it. But...
Or the Lich King.
Oh, there is still the Lich King.
I mean,
3 Lich Kings.
He can just essentially drain Monsanto resources, and the fact that Monsanto hasn't gotten Ultimate Infestation and also doesn't want to draw with his Nourish. I mean, Purple has a really good chance of just accelerating the game plan and forcing Monsanto to do something.
I was surprised when he played the Fablindus Floop because he's sticking with his game plan of I think he just wants as much value out of these cards as possible. Because when I saw the Death Coil come out, I thought he might go with the Fablindus Floop on the Malygos because you can do the Floop, Swipe, and Death Coil all in with the 10 mana. Goes with the Lich King.
He still has Faceless, so it's fine. I mean, speaking of, Monsanto has the Malygos Faceless big combo this turn. And I think he's just going to go for it because what is he really waiting for beyond this? A Moonfire? That's the only way it can be improved. Doesn't even really necessarily need it. That is 14 damage, which is enough to tickle the armor.
Not even push all the way through. And to be fair to Monsanto, this is really only answered by Naturalize, but there's the Faceless.
Hold on, let's see. So, because we have double Naturalize, but when you Faceless, Swipe becomes a 9.
It's not enough to kill the Malygoses with the Swipe. He's still going to have to use the Naturalizes. Death Grip first, see what he gets the Floop.
So I think I like Faceless and most likely... Well, do you want to double Naturalize at that point?
Yeah, your opponent's
do you want to Faceless if you're going to double Naturalize? Because your opponent's just going to remove your own Malygos with his Naturalize. And then you can just hold on to it.
But then... your Forbiddenest Floop would be a Faceless Manipulator.
Or is it?
Oh.
It's actually a Malagos.
Did not know that's how that worked. So I think with that being the Malagos, I think you're kind of in the clear to do the double naturalize. Oh, your opponent also just used a swipe, so what are the chances he actually has enough damage to get the Malagos, assuming he doesn't have the second naturalize?
Well, yeah, so that's why, you know, this play ends up making a lot of sense, because he has the ability to floop after he faceless. And now he's got double Malagos without having to give his opponent extra cards with the naturalize. Oh my gosh.
And he can only answer one of these. Branching Pass, not going to do it. I think he's going to have to Nourish for draw, which is what he's been avoiding this entire game. It's either that or he's going to leave a Malagos up. I think, what are his answers? He's already used a swipe.
He's already used 2 swipes.
2 swipes are gone. He's already used a naturalize, so I don't even know if there is an answer.
Spellstone. So I think what he could do is Nourish, Naturalize, Hero Power, and Spellstone. That's probably his best course of action. That would be 9 mana. But that's just surviving. And I think you're really far behind at that point. You don't have much left in your deck. You have the Lich King.
And purple, I believe, still has his own Malagos.
Purple has his own Malagos.
Yep.
I mean, he just has board presence. He has Malfurion now.
Yeah, I was going to say that Monsanto's kind of only saving grace right now is that he does have the DK Hero Power online, so he could hopefully out-damage purple over an extremely long period of time. But with purple picking up the Malfurion the Pestilent right now, that's just a pipe dream, and looks like he's going to slowly run away with Game 2.
Yeah, this was pretty excellently navigated by purple, and I don't blame Monsanto, given that, you know, when things like Ultimate Station come to hand, that's his best play, but fatigue really does matter. He's just going to pass.
Oh.
And purple's like, wow, okay, nothing. I guess I maybe just win? Like, how much damage can he put out if he does, like, branching paths and whatnot? I guess he doesn't have any good spell damage, so Malagos is just a vanilla 3-4.
Branching Pass for attack.
Yeah, I like it. And then, you know, he can use Ultimate Infestation to lobby 10 damage as a game-finishing blow, which looks like to be the case unless Monsanto can answer. Lich King has arrived!
I think it's just too late at this point. It's staring down a 6-4 Arcane Tyrant that can trade into it. I'm really curious to see how many cards they each respectively have left in their deck, just because Monsanto's been ignoring drawing for so long now. I feel like we have to be pretty close to fatigue, and there's the actual Malagos.
Yeah, so people might be wondering, like, why does fatigue matter? It's because purple has Naturalize, so, you know, Monsanto gets deeper into his deck. Guess what? Naturalize is going to do 10 damage from 1, 2, 3, 4 draws. And, I mean, Monsanto's going to concede. Purple takes the Druid Mirror match.
Purple getting on the board, not wanting to go down without a fight. Series is 1-1 now. Purple still has the Zoo and the Death Rattle Hunter remaining.
Efficient. So I like dumping and waiting to his hand was a little bit better, and waiting for the better opportunity to drop bigger combos, and end up working out brilliantly.
Now, the aggressor is going to take a little bit of a switcheroo over here. We saw earlier that purple was the Zoo aggressor against Monsanto's Death Rattle Hunter, and unfortunately fell, and now purple is going to be on the Death Rattle Hunter, going up against an odd rogue. Similar in the matchup, because you are having to deal with a bunch of early aggressive minions, but odd rogue has a lot more reach from hand.
Ooh, Flanking Strike, some of the best tools paired with Candle Shot against Odd Rogue. A lot of their health minions are at 3 health early on, and then Candle Shot can clean up the rest. And what's important is to stop their pivotal turn 5. Having 2 Flanking Strikes gone, though, is a little bit painful, but, I mean, it doesn't really matter unless you drop to the bottom of your deck, and then you realize that that's when it mattered. And also, I like that he played Tracking first instead of Candle Shot, because Candle Shot can now be used to snipe this 2-1, because if Purple played Candle Shot, there's no way he would have played South Deep Deckhand. Yeah. This is also really brilliant.
Also off the tracking, losing the second Flanking Strike is a bummer, but at the same time, sometimes the threat of Flanking Strike is just enough, because I was talking with Purple and Monsanto yesterday, and do you play a 3 health minion in turn 4 and hope they don't have it? It's like, no. Unless you have no other play, you just don't play it. Gluttonous Ooze Such a good disruption.
Oh my gosh. Look at it, Purple's hand, too. Devil Sword Egg with double Terror Scale Stalkers. And Monsanto is still just developing into a board that's going to wreck him. So he has to go for a Deadly Poison and take it even slower, which gives Purple the opportunity to set up the egg instead of having to react to Flanking Strike.
Also just denied the Henge Clan Thug tempo, making it a 4-4, which is absolutely crucial because it just gets it one outside the range of that Flanking Strike. But with the Candle Shot, would have been able to clean that up. But just denying the board presence of that Henge Clan Thug is just absolutely critical. Blink Fox also in Monsanto's deck. It's a card that kind of fell by the wayside just because the 3-cost slot of minions is just so competitive. It's competing with Henge Clan Thug and Vicious Fledgling and the SI Agent. So no one really played it anymore, but Monsanto, I think, is playing for the value game in this tournament, and seems to be working out so far.
Yeah, like Blink Fox is just helps give a little bit more smoother curves to Odd Rogue because it does tend to run into resource issues, which is why Myers and Stable Element is so important in that deck. And so without the necessity of Blood Knight and Giggling Inventor, you have a lot of room to tech in a specific way. I like the Restraint here on the South Sea deckhand because this is already a threatening minion with the Vicious Fledgling, so Purple can't activate the egg without play dead. And then you can go for, if your opponent leaves up the Blink Fox, the Vicious Fledgling, then you have South Sea deckhand and Fungal Mancer for ultimate pressure.
You also don't want to get rid of the deckhand just because it's a combo activator. And so you also have the coin as well, but sometimes you need that just to fit in that extra minion. So you always want to keep at least one guy back unless it's to clear something very critical or you're pushing for that last bit of damage.
Turn 6 is Deathstalker Rexar. If your opponent has like good responses, or potentially Masuhar, or potentially 2/3 drops with the Terror Scale Stalker, Mind Control Tech, etc. So Monsanto's best tempo play right now is 2 3-mana minions with Henge Clan Thug and an SI7 or a Blink Fox. I think the longer you take for this Henge Clan Thug to get set up, the worse it gets because Spider Bomb and all these other things can have so many easy activators with Houndmaster Shaw. So I think this might be the turn you play Henge Clan Thug.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what you pair it up with. I think the Blink Fox is definitely the way to go because the 2 damage from the SI Agent is kind of irrelevant. Stampede. I'm trying to think, because the Blink Fox, I think, is the only beast in the deck which would have can work with the Stampede.
That's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. So
is that really the case? Let me see. Yeah, there's only one Blink Fox.
Yeah, so it's
there's 2 Dire Moles.
2 Dire Moles, yes. But I believe if we're at a point in the game where Stampede Dire Mole is the out, I think Monsanto's already lost. 2 5/5s coming down, swinging into the Henge Clan Thug, which is really good because, as we were talking about earlier, when Monsanto was swinging into the doubling imps, we don't want it to upgrade and be able to value trade. So if we were to dagger up and make it 8 5/5, now it can't value trade in to the 3/3 as easily.
Yeah. Monsanto forced to play Trade Stone, and that is a bad spot for Odd Rogue, as right now Purple is going to press in for a little bit more. Saturday Night Chain Gang.
Prince Keleseth.
Yeah, it's looking tough.
Looking real tough. Saturday Night Chain Gang just preventing any face damage, and reminder, Rexar is still at 32 HP, and so he is nowhere near dying. Void Ripper, though. 2 of them.
Nah, it's the egg. Like, if the egg wasn't there, then Void Ripper play would actually be really good because Blink Fox would get nice trades into the Saturday Night Chain Gang with the dagger, and then you could use the South Sea deckhand to run in for extra removal.
Yeah, it would also lower the attack of the Devil Sword that is currently out to try to alleviate some pressure, but like you said, with the egg on board, Void Ripper is almost a liability more so than an asset.
That being said, it might still be one of your better plays because your other plays are just so weak. If you set up Cobalt Scalebane, it just gets easy trade into. If you try to go for like SI7 agent, you're not really picking off anything of substance, and your Blink Fox challenged so easily. So the more I look at it, it might end up being a Void Ripper play. Despite the fact that you create a 5/5 for your opponent, you still end up answering the board a little bit, and you develop on your own side, which isn't the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think Monsanto would be on board for that play if he had something like Bile Spine Slayer in the hand where he knows he can use it to fight back for board, but with Cobalt Scalebane really being his only option, it's just a really tough sell, but he's going to go for it. Not using the using the SI over the deckhand, so not going to develop a dagger. But this is just a perilous board looking down, and Katharina coming down this turn just makes it even better.
Almost anything it pulls is just not bad. Devil's Sword is icing on the cake.
Oh yeah.
19 power represented out of 24 life. Monsanto concedes. Death Rattle Hunter, 2 appearances, 2 victories, and purple is 1 game away from going to the round of 8. I mean, just so far ahead because of that candle shot on the South Sea deckhand, and more importantly, like, goes to show you that the ooze on 3 is really powerful because it just resets all of Odd Rogue's tempo. Like, they're trying so hard to use that early game dagger to remove everything in pressure, but you know, Monsanto never got the chance to do so. Now we go to the opposite side of things, where this is probably Monsanto's best matchup. Odd Rogue just cleans up almost everything that Zoo has. If purple somehow was able to swap the positioning of his hand with doubling it with Fungal Mancer, this would have been quite possibly the nuttiest opening I've seen in Zoo. But, you know, purple doesn't have any good plays, so at least he can do is spook his opponent. Yeah,
purple's been struggling with the early game with the Zoo. Because the last time he played Zoo, it was pass, tap, and then only played something on turn 3, which was an unbuffed doubling imp. So the Soul Infusion going on the Fungal Mancer for turn 1 is really rough. And with the coin, maybe you can get it out of the hand a turn early just so you can buff the doubling imp. But at that point, like, it's just not worth it. It's just something you're just going to have to live with.
Well, the Cold Blood draw makes it really interesting here for Monsanto, because if he Cold Bloods the Crystallizer, the best response purple has is to Soulfire, which means he can't coin out like a doubling imp. And then that might give him the ability to play Vicious Fledgling uncontested unless he has a second Soulfire, which at that point, you're out of resources, but your opponent has to literally draw the perfect responses because he won't keep Soulfire in his opening hand. Ends up balking at the last second, not even attacking because of the threat of Happy Ghoul with heals. And that works A-okay for purple. Ends up life tapping too, so that way you can get that damage and maybe get that Happy Ghoul for the board swing.
Yeah, I would have liked to see just how that played out with the Cold Blood, just because on turn 3 he had the dagger into Deadly Poison if purple were to try to play a minion to contest if he didn't have the Soulfire. But alas, he just went for the hero power, and now Vicious Fledgling coming down, and I don't see an answer in purple's hand.
Yeah, I think that South Sea deckhand Cold Blood play is something to consider if you feel really far behind and if you are really unfavored in the matchup. You take a risk like that, but when you give your opponent the ability to answer you with coin 4/4s, undoubling him, or Soulfire, I think that's probably the scariest thing. And look at purple basically playing handlock. Like, what is he doing? He's like life tapping. Flame Imp's okay to die because it just gets destroyed by the dagger anyways, which is why he didn't play the previous turn. Yeah. Now I think Bronzo's like, okay, now it's time to Cold Blood because there's really nothing else left to do. And he didn't play his doubling imp when he had the chance after Soul Infusion on 1.
Yeah, I was really interesting because I thought he was going to doubling imp coin the Soulfire just to develop some semblance of a board, but just more taps. This is the most taps I've seen this early from a Zoo player, I think, ever. Now Monsanto can just run away with the board. Dire Mole picked up is not the best, but it's a minion. And it can activate Cold Blood. Those are my 2 criteria for an okay play.
So many options.
Deadly Poison if purple wants to play a big minion next turn as well, because the 4 attack can clear off a majority of what purple can play. Deckhand may be a little premature just because purple does run the 1 copy of Dreadlord, and you don't want that getting cleared off for free. And Baku is just not coming down anytime soon. So given the context of the hand, I'm not surprised to see the Cold Blood come out here just because I think he wants to end this game sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I like attacking with the dagger and re-daggering. It's a good hedge. Again, you know, the burst is nice with the South Sea deckhand and Deadly Poison, but you don't know if you need that defensively versus aggressively. And now purple with another awkward situation here. I don't know how much longer you can hold off. Like, I think, oh wow, another life tap. Is he that desperate for Happy Ghoul?
I don't know what he's looking for. He has the doubling imp and the Voidwalker, and that's going pretty wide on the board for a pretty good Fungal Mancer turn.
Well, the reason why Happy Ghoul is really important is because
Wow.
it kind of challenges the board. Purple life taps 3 turns in a row with Zoo and concedes. That was...
Did he play a single minion? Soul Infusion?
Also why Crystallizer is like being put in the decks pretty consistently across the board, because the 1/3 early on is really valuable for the trades. You're able to take down any 2 attack minions very efficiently, any 3 health minions efficiently too.
Purple given his classic face. Not one to hide his emotions at all. He's always been a very charismatic and outgoing personality when he's been on camera.
Yeah,
And looking at this hand, you can see exactly why.
Doubling Imp at least is something to do. Purple had to life tap on 3. I would probably already start considering this game to be over, just because Zoo needs these early game turns to pressure the Druid. Druid has a lot of ability to survive. And look at this coin innervate Twig. I was like, you know what? My opponent's passing, maybe I can take it easy. Not the case with Monsanto. He wants to get maximum mana. And this is a 5-turn ramp plan. Like, if he does draw Ultimate Devastation, but doesn't have anything like Nourish or Wild Growth, that's okay. He's going to get there in 5 turns.
This is also pretty good just because you can almost consider this like the odd rogue hero power, because he already has 1 attack, and with the hero power is going to get him to that 2 attack point, which can clear most minions that Purple was going to be able to play this turn. And so not only is this the ramp plan, this also is kind of the removal plan.
Yeah, the Fungal Mancers, though, are going to hurt a lot. Like, a lot. That's a nice draw. The Ferocious Howl here is a good pickup. It's a good stopgap right now in between turns. But Fungal Mancer is going to be devastating. And more importantly is that because Serenite Chain Gang has Taunt, and you buff both taunts, in order to get these Twig triggers, or sorry, the Twig durability lower, you need to attack into 4 attack minions, and that hurts.
Damage is going to add up really quickly, and Monsanto has the Nourish Wild Growth, which is what, you know, every Druid player's dream is, but in this point, he's got to get removal real quick.
I mean, that's the play that most people look at, but do you have time to do that? Like, is it better perhaps to be defensive instead?
So we have the Arcane Tyrant that can come out for free if we decide to Nourish. The Spellstone is unupgraded.
Yeah, so you can Hero Power and Spellstone a 4/4 and then naturalize the other 4/5. It gives you still enough mana to ramp.
With the Wild Growth, and I think we're going to have to
Actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Excuse me. I suck.
It's all good. I still like it, Dan. Nourish, definitely going to have to be used for draw, though. I think Spreading Plague is going to be what brings Monsanto back to this game, because the Faceless Manipulator maybe can go on the Dreadlord to try to fight back for board, but that just does not sound appealing at all. There's the Happy Ghoul Purple was looking for last game. So
now you're coming up on the last turn for Twig, which means you have to anticipate that Ultimate Infestation is a possibility. If your opponent plays UI and shuts down one of your 4/4s, what's the Spore State look like afterwards? You're going to push 8 damage, put your opponent 10. He goes up to 15, kills a 4/4, so you have 6 power plus Flame Imp, which would be 9. And that means you're 6 off from killing your opponent with no burst in the hand. Solarium could be the distance, or the way to close the distance.
Yeah, let's
Another opportunity is actually the Voodoo Doll and Happy Ghoul. I think I like that better because it puts out 5 damage. Actually, it's 2 Happy Ghouls. Oh my god, that is the 6 damage.
Nice.
I didn't realize he had 2 Happy Ghouls.
Another thing to think about, just from a macro sense in Purple's deck, is that with that 1 copy of the Despicable Dreadlord, that was replacing 1 Doomguard. So as far as burst potential from hand goes, he has only the 2 Soulfires and 1 Doomguard. No Leroy Jenkins to see.
Yep. Draw 3 cards, snap the Twig.
Double swipe.
Double swipe is okay. You clear off.
You swing into one of the Happy Ghouls, and then you swipe the 2 4/4s, and that's going to leave a 3/1.
Yeah.
And then you can Moonfire, clear it, and then develop 2 Arcane Tyrants in the meantime. Seems pretty good.
That actually is pretty insane. You're at 7 health. I mean, you're very close to dying, but you're still going to survive because of Malfurion hero power.
It's the only conceivable way Monsanto would lose from his position right now is the one of Doomguard Soulfire or potentially 2 Soulfires, which can come from the Solarium, but he is 1 turn away from what looks like stabilizing. Cobalt Librarian can dig a little bit as well. I think it's going to be the Solarium first. Or do you just develop board? You looking for the win right now, or do you play a little bit longer? He's going for it.
Yeah, he knows that his time is almost up. Light Warden.
Light Warden. Voodoo Doctor.
I mean, the good news is that you could play all those, but he's going to look for other cards first to potentially end it.
There's
Soulfire. Oh my gosh.
Not off the Solarium either, which is very crucial.
Yeah.
There's going to be 3 2s now, and probably play the Flame Imp as well.
And Monsanto's best defensive play is Malfurion right now, unless he draws Ultimate Infestation. Purple wondering if he should Soulfire a minion to try to protect his board, because clearly he's not going to get there with double Soulfire, and he ends up passing. Spreading Plague off the top.
I think Malfurion's still the better play, because Spreading Plague is going to get you 3 Beetles, but Malfurion is going to get you 2 Beetles. So you're only 1 beetle less, but you also get that hero power online and also heal for 5. And so you don't have to worry about Soulfires coming past your taunts. And your opponent's, at this point, you just saw it went incredibly wide as a last-minute desperation attempt to just get that last bit of damage. So you know your opponent is going to just go even wider, most likely. So Spreading Plague is probably going to get better as the turns go on. So Malfurion is probably the play here. That's what he ends up going with. With that 5 extra armor, though, I think he's going to decide whether he wants to attack and clear off some of these minions or just armor up as quickly as possible.
If he attacks, he goes down to 11 or 10 life, depending on what he chooses to attack. Still pretty safe. But, oh man, the 4-1s with the Dreadlord is going to be pretty nasty.
He's already seen 2 Fungalmancers as well, so he's not too worried about the Flame Imp getting upgraded.
Oh man.
Value trading him, but he's going to kill it.
This Dreadlord is going to be so nuts.
He's going to kill 3 of the 4 things on board. Monsanto's only follow-up really is the Spreading Plague.
And even then, it's not amazing.
It's only going to create 2 things.
But, yeah.
Unless he trades in one of the beetles to the Dreadlord prior to get a fresh beetle.
Well, what he could do is face manipulate the Dreadlord like you were talking about.
Ooh.
But let's see what he draws off this Wild Growth first. Malygos. That'd be really useful to snipe a big minion, but 1 mana off. I think Faceless the 4/5. And what you can actually... Oh, no, you can't do that. I was like trying to bump the 4/5 with your hero power, but you are taking too much damage at that point.
Yeah, I think he's going to most likely just bump into one of the 2/2s. So the Despicable Dreadlord effect clears it off, and then Moonfire the other one if he really wants to fight for board. Or he's going to save the Moonfire for the Malygos next turn to hopefully take out this Dreadlord or any other minion that purple plays. But it's tough.
Yeah, there's double Fungalmancer used already, so I think you should be okay. Wow, Spreading Plague. That is so much respect for the amount of burst that can come out. And I think Monsanto, this is kind of a gut check moment. Game 5, rope is burning. One decision is a little bit more aggressive on board, one is more defensive. Spreading Plague keeps you alive a little bit longer. Faceless lets you potentially swing the board. And Monsanto, once again, taking a conservative approach.
Going face with the beetle as well. Doesn't want to waste the Moonfire to kill one of these doubling imps. If he's not Faceless manipulating the Despicable Dreadlord, is he saving it for the Malygos? Is that his out? Hope the Malygos lives, which it likely will. And then Faceless Manipulator hopefully burst my opponent, who might aggressively overtap and get their life total a little bit low.
Well, the 2/2s can trade into one of the 1/5s. Or sorry, the 1/5. Monsanto staring at a lot of pressure. Another Spreading Plague. I mean, if Monsanto had Ultimate Infestation, that also could have been a really good situation, but Faceless Manipulator on the Dreadlord's also a good spot, but Spreading Plague also is an interesting thing because of the Dreadlord. And the Dreadlord basically makes all those 1/4s, which is a lot worse because of the way the 2 attack lines up against everything.
It's very similar to how Questrokes started incorporating Phantom Knives into the main build just for this Spreading Plague. And it actually plays out very similar with the Dreadlord. Going to be able to value trade a little bit better.
Purple is just not loving it. I mean, he's just like, man, can this druid ever die? And the answer is no.
Hero power.
30 life gain, by the way. I think you do want to consider killing off a 2/3. You're at 13 life, so burst isn't as easily accessible. I don't think purple plays Void Ripper. I'm checking right now. No.
No Void Ripper.
And the one thing that is scary, though, is the threat of a fungal enchanter. That is very scary. Because then everything just goes back up, and then you have to like face the Dreadlord.
The Moonfire, I think, is our sign of respect for that, but this is where Purple's tech decisions start coming in. The Tar Creeper. There's the Fungal Enchanter you were talking about, but cards like Voidwalker, Tar Creeper, these are just not good cards against Druid.
I mean, when they're buffed, though, it is a lot harder to deal with.
Oh, those are 2/6s. That is correct.
And it's a 4/4. These are just like slightly harder to deal with.
Both swipes already used for Monsanto as well, so this Malagos is quickly running out of stuff to combo with.
Yeah, and I think purple is also making board space, trading the 2/1.
Yeah, it's getting pretty far into the deck. There's the Soul Infusion. Doubling Imps are gone, and I believe both Serenites are gone as well. So we've run out of the ideal targets. All that's left of this Voidwalker, which is a 2/4, will go to a 4/6, which is
much
just
better
fine.
Offensively.
Soulfire on the 1/5 Beetle.
Yeah, he's clearly not going to get away with using Soulfire for burst.
Yeah.
And there is still one Doomguard in the deck for purple, and he's getting fairly close to it.
Oh, that Dreadlord was so devastating. But the Lich King coming down right now is
Lich King
really good.
Is Monsanto's potential out. Death and Decay or Doom Pact could be his lifesaver. But if he plays Lich King, is he just dead? Let's count. So 8 goes in there, 4 goes into a taunt. No, he's still in the clear.
6. With a Doomguard off the top, he's still just a couple damage short.
He even has a luxury to attack because he's going to be okay. The math checks out unless purple gets, Doomguard into second Soulfire?
Doom Pact! That's exactly what he needed off the Lich King. But the problem right now is that there are so many creatures on the board that in the event of a Doom Pact, I think he's just going to mill the rest of his deck.
Well, he's trading most of it off right now. But yes, 4/5 Dreadlord should probably go in because of the threat of Ultimate Infestation.
How many cards does Monsanto have left in the deck? And can he afford to Doom Pact? And can he afford not to? If he trades his Beetle in, assuming purple plays the Pinions in hand, that's going to mill 5 cards. I don't even know if he has 5 cards left in the deck. And can he win in Fatigue against Zoo? I don't think he can.
Purple playing the Flame Imp and hoping for no Death and Decay. He's hoping for a really bad Death Knight card. And Branching Paths isn't exactly the greatest, but what it can do is allow Monsanto to draw first and then Doom Pact. He also has the ability to do a very unusual play of Faceless Manipulator as a tempo minion.
That is a force.
Purple's like, oh my god, he's hovering over the Death Knight card. Oh my god, please don't be Doom Pact. And it's Doom Pact.
Ferocious Howl. Ultimate Infestation.
UI gone, another UI gone.
Branching Pass. Nourish. Not the worst at all. The Branching Pass hurt a little bit because that can be armor later on in a potential fatigue
he's
state.
Afraid of the Doomguard. And Purple's very close to drawing it. He's so deep in his deck.
There's the Soulfire.
Yeah, Soulfire to the face because he doesn't want to draw a Doomguard here and force to discard it.
Tap.
Fungal
Enchanter. And even if he did get the Doomguard, Monsanto has had this Faceless Manipulator since the very beginning of the game.
Yeah, I think it's time to Malagos. The life gain, the stall is just too much. More importantly, there was no early building blocks from Zoo. Purple just had no 1 or 2 mana plays.
Soul Infusion on.
And there it is.
Doomguard. But this is just setting up lethal for Monsanto with the Faceless Manipulator.
The Faceless Manipulator just copies it. And that's going to do it. What an intense Game 5. Purple just a few points off from ending it. And he was tweeting about how he felt like this could have been his tournament. But, I mean, Monsanto able to just stabilize. And he got so many of the answers he needed. But the big important play that I feel like happened was the recognition for the Twig off of the coin and the Innervate. And you can see good sportsmanship